We'll seek out the speakers later and follow up. We had some great presentations today, and we have another great presentation coming up. Dr. Nigel Banks was with Postharvest Limited in New Zealand. The topic of his presentation this afternoon is intensely engage and empower your post-harvest trainers for impact. So let's welcome Dr. Banks.
Good afternoon. I have been working on whiteboard videos now for about a year. It grew out of a project that I started with 2 or 3 clients on developing visuals, infographics for extension work in commercial activities. And as soon as I happened upon the whiteboard video stuff, it immediately resonated with me as a tool for really reaching people. And one of the things that has really struck me this last couple of days is that in dealing with the kind of systems that we are dealing with, there are so many factors playing all together, interacting with each other, and having an impact on final outcomes, that it's actually quite hard to get a single idea about what should be done. It's quite hard to generate a single idea of best practice. With that said, best practice is not a bad place to start in terms of extension work, but it's really only a starting point, because it's only once you've got conceptual models in people's heads and they are then empowered to interact with new information coming in and make robust decisions in the face of that inflow of information, that you're really going to get the best decisions being made in a post-harvest system. So why whiteboard videos? One of the most attractive features is the visual metaphors, and as you saw with the presentation earlier on, there was some really nice stuff about the way that you've got the characters interacting with content and demonstrating things that they're thinking about, the actions that they're going through. In the approach that I've taken, it's a little bit more focused on icons and communicating messages in a way that's a little bit less literal, a little bit less explicit. You also communicate the complex in a simple way and a very memorable way. You get the potential to unravel your story or to reveal your story gradually, which gives your audience a sense of suspense and anticipation of what's coming next. As we had presented earlier, you've also got the potential for easy and free distribution. So you've got an initial upfront cost of preparing the content, but then once it's available for free forever, basically. And then you've also got the potential for personality and rhythm that's provided by the voiceover. And as I go through developing these things with a client, typically you develop your key messages, you develop your ideas about what the graphics are going to be, you are developing your script, you go through a few cycles of these interactions. And by the time you've developed 2 or 3 drafts of the video itself, the whole thing is timed in this beautiful sequence. So you get this sense of flow, and it's a really great way of getting information across. It's almost like music or like a poem. You know, it's an art form. And so it's very easy to be enthusiastic about it. I'm just going to show you a quick section from a video that I prepared to show to a group up in Thailand earlier this year, people from 6 different countries. I'd decided that by working with them to translate the script, rather than them go home with a set of notes from what Nigel said at the week's engagement, they would actually have on a core topic something that they have themselves translated into their own language. They've internalised that content. And so once we've then attached their own voiceovers to that content, then they've got an extension tool that they can use that is in their words, in their voice, that they can present at home. And it felt like a really a nice approach to me. Amusingly, I prepared the voiceover to this on the morning after the karaoke the night before, and it was also done trying to drown out the noise of the geckos. I'd never realised why geckos are called geckos until I was in Thailand this trip, but they make an amazingly gecko-like sound. And they were doing this stuff in the background anyway. So making this voiceover, I was underneath the bed covers in my bed with a slightly husky voice.
Are you wanting to get better returns for your growers by delivering better product to market? And are you reviewing your packaging options as your main approach? Yeah, me too. How about we swap notes? Let me tell you what I've been thinking about first. As I see it, my product starts out in the field naked as individual items and ends up with consumers naked as individual items. But it's too expensive to carry the individual items from field to consumer one by one. So I collect them together into piles and then into packages so I can handle them efficiently. Then later, I take them out of the packages again and put them into piles for display to consumers. And somewhere in all of that, I'm losing way too much product. Let's break that issue open and have a look. Unless a crop has real problems, my growers harvest close to 100% of the crop that grows on the plant. But then they reject some at grading time because it doesn't meet standards, perhaps 10%. The remaining, say 90%, goes into the food care system. Here, product is cooled, stored, transported, and delivered for retail sale. But the environment isn't perfect for my product. That's where the packaging I've been using comes in, to protect my product from imperfect handling environments. But by the time it reaches retail, about a third of the crop has become unsaleable. And finally, consumers leave some uneaten, perhaps another 10%. So of the original crop harvested by my grower, maybe only around 50% actually gets eaten. We hear a lot these days about a food crisis coming, as our food production will struggle to keep pace with our growing population. But it seems amazing to me that we deliver 50% more into the food care system than we get out, and we grow almost twice the amount that we actually consume. My sense is that packaging has a huge role to play in fixing this problem, and I've been thinking about how it could work. Physical damage is often the main direct cause of my losses, and packaging can really help here. But sometimes the other defects can have a bigger effect on what my customers buy. Rots are often the worst, and product that shows signs of aging also sends strong warning signals to my buyers. It's not surprising that they don't want to buy product that looks like it's dying. I think better packaging will help me tackle all of these problems. When I have big stacks of product, they are hard to cool. The center overheats and causes aging, and the hotspot releases water that condenses in cooler regions, for example under covers, increasing the chance of rots. But if I don't cool my product and I don't protect it from wind, it wilts or shrivels quickly. When I stack
So that's the approach. I'm going to skip over that one since I'm a little light on time and go into So now I'm just going to run through some of the things that have emerged for me over the last year or two in terms of reading all kinds of stuff about how different people think that these contents can be communicated effectively. There's a really nice introduction to this by some guys, Chip and Dan Heath, a couple of brothers who've written a book called Made to Stick. But you'll see in my list of references a few other sources there. And then also some of my own experience built in. As you'll see in the abstract, I've got 4 S's that contribute to this, making things that are memorable and engaging. And one of the most important is having stuff that is solid. So it's got a sense of being concrete, So it's tangible, it's something that people can get what it is, it's not too conceptual. It's also credible, so that people feel like it's coming from a source that actually knows what they're talking about. And as we have done this, traditionally we've done it with references, but these days a lot more of it's coming through social proof and demonstrations of activity in the field. In terms of concreteness, there's just a quick example here of a sort of halfway house between taking something conceptual and giving it some visual form that will help make it more memorable. So it's basically characterising the arc of produce as it goes from the grower through to the consumer, through the supply system. Your product gets a little bit of shrinkage as it goes through, and then once it gets to the consumer at the other end, you have money flowing back through the system, through all those participants back to the grower, and also shrinking a little bit as they go through. And a typical supply system, you know, that's the goal. We've got to get our stuff there in as good a shape as possible, and we get the money back, and we've done what we're supposed to do. But the sad thing is that that's leaving a very large proportion of the potential returns available on the table, because one of the things that really adds value in a supply system is the information that travels through with the product that really adds value, and then the information that travels back from the market that enables people to respond to that. And okay, I'll just stop that there. One of the profound experiences I had with this when I was working with the kiwifruit industry at Zespri was in packaging information to travel with kiwifruit, and over the space of a decade, by creating a branded approach in which you've got segregated high taste product, we've basically seen a doubling of that product going into the high return market in Japan, and a level of enthusiasm for purchase which is completely unprecedented. And that program's probably been generated in excess of $1 billion. And that's similar product, but now it's better tasting, it's well segregated, and oh, that's me clicking away, there we go. It's well segregated, and so it's generating returns for growers that are completely new. So when we first started out with that program, growers were absolutely incensed that we were going to put 14 cents a tray on achieving that taste standard, and the scientists, by the way, told us we couldn't do it. We couldn't have a taste measure because it was too complex. We ended up with a one variable taste index, which has a great correlation with consumer response. And that means you can then tell your consumers what they're going to get. You can segregate your high taste product. You're getting close to double the value returns from that high taste product. And now, 11 years on, we've got growers now being paid $2 a tray. So that's like 20 times the initial incentive, because that's what it's worth to grow high taste fruit. So by enabling the real value of your product to be identified and transmitted through to your consumers, you've got a huge opportunity. And that's where the sharing of information becomes really powerful. And if you can build an innovation system that gathers information through from all of these sources, and you go through a heap of build, measure and learn loops, then as I say, over the course of 10 to 15 years you can make a huge impact. Second principle is simplicity, and as the well-known scientist with a wild head of white hair said, make it as simple as possible but not simpler. But that's one of the things that's critical to people getting into the subject and believing that they can deal with it. The third one that's really impactful is story. And we're all wired to listen to stories. We love listening to stories. And once something becomes a story, and it's not just a collection of facts, it's something that we relate to so much more powerfully. And it's the thing that gives context, it's the thing that gives meaning, and it's the thing that really motivates us to listen and gives us the confidence that we can do something, and we're going to get something out of what we're listening to. one of the slight contrasts with the concrete thing here is that if you want to generate sympathy, show an actual photograph of somebody having a hard time. If you want to generate empathy and engagement, it's almost at the other extreme. And this is kind of a halfway house, but if you go to the simplest representation of a human face, a circle and 2 dots, what happens is you don't see the person out there having a hard time, you actually see you in the story, because that circle and 2 dots has become the human, it's you involved in the story. So generating a character that is credible and relatable for your audience is really important. And that character then helps you with who is involved and then why it's important to them. And that's motivating for the listening. You've then got what is it that they want to achieve, what's their goal, what's the thing that's important to them, and what happened. That's it. That's the guts of a story, and it just transforms everything from being a collection of facts through to something that is potentially very relatable. And then the final thing is surprise, and you'll see the dots here, and this is the classic thing of thinking outside the square, and all of a sudden the impossible task of joining all the dots with 4 straight lines without lifting your pen is totally doable. You generate the aha moment, you get that little flood of chemicals comes into your brain, and you suddenly get addicted to this whole process of learning with those aha moments. And this is one of my favourite things of all time. This is from Arthur Koestler's book from 1964 about generating ahas. And so as he starts out, he's got a plane of existence, which is your current paradigm. It's where you operate from. And unfortunately, your goal is up there. It doesn't have a solution in the current frame. You can meander backwards and round about as much as you want in that current frame, and you're never going to get there. And then by combining different matrices of information, one of which is orthogonal to the one that you're dealing with, all of a sudden the intersection of those matrices is the place where the aha happens, and you've got your solution. And that is what you're trying to create for the people that you are working with. So you generate your aha, and you really are you're really making progress with your audience. So those 4 processes, principles: solid, simple. Whoops. I'm going to have my wife's Thai videos kind of be a disaster. Okay, so this needs to come down here. There's not much left. So in conclusion, whiteboard video, so far for me, an awesome tool for explaining systems, really great fun to work with. People love watching them, and they actually love working on them with you to create them, because you've got this whole way of taking the stuff that they're working with and putting it into another world that other people are going to understand and enjoy. Making your whiteboard videos, you hopefully now already will start out with some confidence in tackling some of this yourself. There's lots of software out there, and just make a start. If you're interested in conversing with me, maybe even collaborating with me, there's my contact details. I'd love to hear from you. Okay, very good.